Assumption. Is it ever good? Is it always bad? I think that a lot of life exists within things that we don't prescribe, things we aren't analytical towards. And I think assumption kind of takes away both of those things. And in my own experience, I don't know whether or not assumption is necessarily a good or bad thing. To assume is to, you know, make false what you prescribe to be real. It's in your head until it's has evidence, and it's no longer assumption. It's, you know, an accurate prescription. So, is it always a bad thing to assume? Is it a bad thing to try to overthink into the future and state things are going to happen, or maybe allow our anxieties and insecurities to project into our perception of the future and make things seem as if they're the exact way we don't want them to be? I think that in life, we have nothing to gain from assumption. Assumption just causes early suffering, and he who suffers before it's necessary suffers more than necessary. Whatever problem we're assuming might happen or worry we have is going to happen whether or not we like it, if it is to happen at all. And if you have a chance at avoiding it, then there has to be some evidence in order to do that. But I think oftentimes we assume because we're scared, out of fear that whatever we're assuming might actually occur. I think a lot of times we assume the negative in order to protect our own mental. To assume is to allow yourself to be with the negative possibility. And so when it happens, we assume that we'll be even better. But that's almost never the case. Even with that early suffering, we still find ourselves being trapped, still being impacted heavily by things outside of our control. I think that it's easy to do, it's easy to assume. And I think it also has to do with our ego, trying not to be hurt, trying not to feel things caused by other people or other circumstances because we feel as if we shouldn't. But I think relinquishing that makes life a lot more peaceful. Realizing that you don't have to assume, realizing that what you're doing doesn't necessarily have to be in reference to anything else. Just living your life for living's sake, being within the moment rather than being within a future. But we need to realize that within that, looking in the future, we're not really helping our future self. Our future self is just going to be just as ill prepared at that circumstance if all we can do is worry. If thinking is all you can do, then it's probably not worth thought. Problems in our head are often just in our head and not an accurate prescription of reality, rather a projection of our own internal dilemmas and issues. So any implication would be to attempt to stop assuming. Just building yourself up enough to not allow any negative to impact you. It's not necessarily having faith in the whole world or any circumstance or person. It's having faith that you as a person will be able to exist beyond the negative circumstance that could occur. It's realizing that who you are isn't defined by events that may happen or, thoughts of other people or anything in that area. It's having faith in yourself. It's having hope rather than fear. Fear is heavy. It's a prescription. It's something you carry with you. You go into a certain circumstance and you have the fear of a certain outcome. And that's why we feel it. That's why we get that anxious feeling, that anxiety, and there's almost nothing you could do about it but hope. And when you hope and have faith in it, not in like a religious sense, just like a hope in it, you kind of relinquish. It's like forgiving yourself for even being afraid in the first place. Whoever you are, you've made it to this point after every negative circumstance. Even sometimes when negative stuff hits us astray and we don't even know what's going to happen before it. And we don't even get the chance to worry about it, we've made it out. I think that faith in the self is just as important as anything else in life. Having that solid foundation for who you are allows you to traverse any type of circumstance. And no form of assumption will ever build you up. Assumption only tears down your walls even more. It's confirming and admitting that who you are is conditional. So we need to start being the life, instead of trying to see it always. The more we squint our eyes and search, the more obscured our vision becomes.